Welcome to Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse, a podcast exploring cult classics, subculture, and geek media. I'm Nick.
And I'm Dave.
And we will be your tour guides for this deep dive of Alex Proyas's 1994 gothic horror revenge fantasy, The Crow.
Yeah, I might have called it James O'Barr's gothic revenge fantasy, The Crow.
Adapted from the graphic novel by James O'Barr.
Yeah, this is a huge one for us. I mean, both of us are super fans, so I don't know how this is even going to be interesting to listen to. I shouldn't say that at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't watched this movie in a long time, so I was really glad when you suggested this.
Yeah, so it's Halloween month. It's October, and so I was thinking, what's the most Halloween-y episode I can think of? And it had to be The Crow.
Mm-hmm. I think there was something you weren't thrilled with. Oh, I think it was after The Green Knight, and you were a little let down about that movie, and you said, one of our next episodes is going to be The Crow. You made a proclamation, and I'm glad you did. I think that was a good call.
I want to do an episode on something I would like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to turn the ship around.
Yeah. And so, I think actually this will be a great episode because enthusiasm is always makes for good conversation.
Yeah, and I always feel weird calling myself a super fan about anything because there's always a bigger one.
Yeah, but there's always a bigger fan.
But I'm a pretty big fan of this. And a funny thing happened at the I Like Comics convention in Vancouver, Washington, I think in 2018. James O'Barr was there, and I was going to go buy a print from him. And literally, I already owned every print that he had for sale, and they were all already signed. So there was nothing for me to buy that wouldn't have been redundant.
Nice.
And so I had him sign my copy of the Crow trade paperback. And then when I pulled it out for, research for this podcast, I noticed that had already been signed too. So it has two signatures from him on it, one on the cover and one in one of the internal pages.
Nice. I've never met James O'Barr because I'm not a big comic convention goer. Is he pretty chill? Pretty cool dude?
Yeah, pretty chill dude. He's older than us, kind of elder Gen Xer instead of a younger Gen Xer. He always wears his Marine field jacket. And he just an old, sad dude.
He's an elder goth, as they would say.
Yeah, elder goth. Yeah, casual goth though. He's not super gothed out or anything, but he's a real sad sack.
Okay.
But friendly. I mean, but he's not much of a talker. I've never had a cool chat with him or anything.
Okay. I mean, yeah, he's a really great storyteller. I think that this was a really, really heartfelt thing that he wrote. It's not a novel. This comic, and so, I mean, I was introduced to it by the movie. I wasn't a fan before the movie, and that when it first came out in '94. But I was a super fan as a kid, as a young teenager. I had the movie poster hanging in my room. I had the Brandon Lee entering the cathedral where there's the shaft of light and the Crow is walking in. And I dressed as the Crow multiple times for Halloween as a teenager. And so pretty much this movie is in the pantheon of Dave.
Yeah, it's just hugely influential. I didn't read the comic until after I'd seen the movie, but I was aware of it, from magazines and stuff. But because it was a small press, independent comic coming from the Midwest, it didn't really have a ton of penetration out here until after the movie. And then, they were pushing real numbers and putting a lot of books out in stores.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a really, really classic movie that has a lot of things to say about it. So let's just jump into this. What have you been up to? Oh,
well, first of all, you and I both went and did something. We went to the Oregon Brewers Guild's 17th annual Portland Fresh Hop Festival.
Yeah, that's a good one. We've been to the Fresh Hop Festival before.
We have, but it's been a few years because everything's been shut down. So it was actually kind of exciting to go to a brew fest again, and it was at the Glendoveer Golf and Tennis Driving Range, which you've been to before. I'd never been there.
Yeah, I went to the Portland Open Disc Golf Pro Tour stop, and it was pretty cool because, I mean, it was all outside, and it's a really nice facility, and it was just really, really well-run event.
Yeah, tall trees all around, very shady. I always hate Brewfest where you're cooking out in the sun.
Yeah, you're trying to huddle under a tent and stuff. No, not this one.
And divers Dana and Ted met up with us, and it was cool to see people in person again.
Divers Lisa and Carrie were there too. So it was a good one.
I mean, my lovely wife Lisa, I don't know if she counts as a diver. We said that Carrie does, but we'll see if Lisa ever listens to this.
If she comments,
then I'll take this back. But I bet she won't ever hear it.
All right.
And then besides that, I saw a ridiculous movie called Venom: Let There Be Carnage.
Oh, how was that?
Directed by Andy Serkis. Those are weird movies. You didn't see the first one?
No, God.
They're phenomenally stupid action movies, but Tom Hardy is just such a charismatic performer, and he's so invested in the character and the world that he makes it watchable, even though it's hot garbage.
Okay.
So, like, if Tom Hardy and Woody Harrelson covered in alien slime trying to kill each other appeals to you in any way, it's worth watching, but I can't say it's a good movie. It's a bad movie that's fun to watch.
Oh man, I talked to a couple of teenagers about this movie. And one of them was like, "It was so lame, I couldn't believe it. I wanted it to be cool like Deadpool, but it wasn't." And then the other one was like, "Oh man, it was so awesome, I loved it." So I didn't know what to think.
Yeah, I think if you can just like get into the stupid, then it's a really fun
I've
movie.
been known to get into the stupid. I mean, one of my favorite comedies is Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah. So if Jim Carrey was Tom Hardy and God, who's the other? Jeff Daniels was an alien goo ball that has possessed him. That's this movie.
Okay.
And they eat people. They bite heads off. It's pretty gnarly.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it doesn't sound terrible.
No, it's a fun time, but it's a bad movie.
Okay. Makes sense.
But what have you been up to?
A couple things, nothing crazy. I went to that Brewfest with you. I got some Invisalign braces, which are a new thing for me. It's not really special, but I mean, it changes a lot of things for me. I can't be like a snack maniac like I like to be because you have to take them out every time.
Are you wearing them right now?
I took them out for the podcast because I noticed it makes my S's sound a little weird. I was feeling a little self-conscious out there, divers.
See, I do that without Invisalign. I just have a lisp.
Okay, so yeah, I took them out. But and then the other thing is I did a long session with my tattoo artist to work on my left arm. And so I have my oldest tattoos on my left arm. I got the first one when I was 18 years old, my bracelet tattoo. That's it's a Celtic lion. And so it's pretty cool. And these tattoos on my left arm have some of that age, and so I definitely don't want to do any cover-up stuff. So me and my artist worked with some designs, and he's doing kind of a Book of Kells inspired panel style on my arm, and it's incorporating my old tattoos into a new sleeve, and so it's really rad. This is the first session of, I think I have 3 more.
Oh man!
In order to get this fully dialed in, and then, yeah, it's gonna be really cool when it's done. I'm pretty happy that this is happening.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that because you always wear long sleeves. So that you have a fresh tattoo I didn't get a alert when I looked at it.
Yeah, I wear long sleeves to work, and we're recording this on a weekday, so I didn't change out of my work clothes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. That's all I've been up to. So what's our podcast fuel for this episode?
We are continuing with Fresh Hop Season, which we've been on for the last 3 episodes?
Yeah.
And I got Killer Red from Double Mountain. It is a fresh hop strong IRA. And let's see, they got just picked hops from Sodbuster Farm in the Willamette Valley. And it's a 7.2 ABV, 88 IBU. I like this beer a lot. I actually like it more than I expected to.
Yeah, I'm usually not a person that goes for a red, but this is pretty good.
It's the killer red, and I looked at that and I heard Top Dollar, the villain from the movie, is like the killer of killers, and I was like, okay, that ties in. It's a tenuous tie, but I made a connection.
Well, yeah, anything death or killing or fire related would have
worked.
Yeah.
There's so many beers that have crows and ravens on them, and there was just nothing at the store when I went. Man. I was like, "Where's this? I know there's like 3 breweries with Raven in their name, but nope, nothing."
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, this is really good beer. Definitely check out Double Mountain if you've never given them a shot.
Yeah, have we not had a Double Mountain beer on the podcast?
I don't know. I know I've drank their beer before.
Yeah, because they're one of my favorite breweries here in Oregon. They're in Hood River, Oregon, just up the gorge a little bit here from the Pod Cave, and they have really excellent pizza and really great beer out there. It's one of my favorite spots.
Yeah, I feel like making a little trip out to Hood River at some point. That'd be nice.
There's always a good reason to go to Hood River.
Yeah. All right, great. Let's go ahead and take a break, and then we'll come back with this deep dive.
All right, welcome back, divers. Let's dive into The Crow, 1994, directed by Alex Proyas.
And first and foremost, rest in peace, Brandon Lee.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Such a tragedy. Like, his career is just starting out. Like, this would have been a real it was a star-making movie for him.
Yeah, this movie was fantastic, and he was amazing in it. So, I mean, it's a real tragedy that he didn't get to live to see his success.
Had you seen his earlier movies, like Rapid Fire and Showdown in Little Tokyo?
I saw them after this.
Okay, yeah, me too.
Made me interested.
But I'm just now realizing that he had an earlier Hong Kong movie career, and there's a bunch of Hong Kong Brandon Lee movies that I've never seen.
Huh, yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so I'll probably get into those at some point. So yeah, I mean, this movie, it opens up this overhead shot, kind of a crow flying over Detroit on Devil's Night. The city's in flames. You see a little tagline says it's October 30th, Devil's Night.
And I love this shot because the modern mind makes you think drone footage or whatnot, but when you look really close, I actually think that's a model city.
It is a model city,
and it's so good.
The model cities, that's my first note here. The model cities are so good in this movie.
I love physical effects. I know I say that like every time there's a movie with physical effects, but it's so good.
And I love model cities. It's something, it's something because I like monster movies and stuff. That's a big part of that. And everyone kind of like, smashing up a cardboard city. It's like, no. Building scale model cities is like a serious art form. And if you cheap out on it, it looks terrible. And these look just excellent. And then the flames, it's like a projection effect.
Oh, okay.
So that's done practically. And then it does this cool thing as the camera kind of flies over the city and then comes into a circular window on the loft where Eric and Shelley lived.
Yeah.
And then it cuts into live footage of Ernie Hudson there in the crime scene. And it's just like executed so well when digital effects really are just in their infancy. Like, I mean, they're killing it.
It would be easy to say that this opening pan all the way up to the beautiful round apartment window was really good for the time, but I would just say it's really good for any time.
Yeah.
It's just nice. It's a great scene.
I just think it would be much easier to do now.
Yeah, for sure.
This was way more labor intensive the way they did it than how you would do it nowadays.
Yeah, and so there's a there's a crime scene going on and whatnot, and one thing I kind of note here is that there's a monologue that goes on, and you know how I hate voiceover.
Yeah,
I don't hate this.
You don't hate this? I have it written down here. It's Sarah's voice, and she says, "People once believed that when someone dies, a crow carries their soul to the land of the dead. But sometimes something so bad happens that a terrible sadness is carried with it, and the soul can't rest. Then sometimes, just sometimes," she says sometimes a lot, "the crow can bring the soul back to put the wrong things right."
And I think that is just enough words in order to tell the audience exactly what to expect from this movie. You're looking at a crime scene, something bad has happened, there's a city aflame, you see this creepy crow here and there and these various footage, and you're told that the crow can bring the soul back to make the wrong things right.
Yeah.
It's exactly the amount of tell that you in order to set the entire premise.
Yeah, and so this is all the voiceover with Sarah is it was added after the Brandon Lee passed away. It was not in the original script, but because of some of the things that they couldn't finish and things that had to be cut, they needed some of this narration to explain the situation a little bit more.
Yeah. Fun fact: the actress that plays Sarah is almost exactly the same age as me. So I think it's just kind of interesting because in the movie she's kind of a kid, but it came out a few years after it was filmed, or a couple years after. So.
Yeah.
She was probably like 12 or 13 when it filmed, and then so that would have put us or me about 14, 15 when I saw it. So that's about
right. Yeah.
So like 15, I think. So yeah, it was. I just thought that was really interesting that she's basically the same age, and I just thought that this is this is a good opening that just tells you straight away this is what you need to expect. This is what to expect. This is what you're going to have. So there's a kind of a storytelling trope where a storyteller makes a promise, and then the expectation is that you keep the promise. And so the promise here is that there's going to be violence and there's going to be wrong things put right in a very, very dark, grim, gritty setting. And so the storytellers, the director, and the all of the people that contributed to these shots and all of that, they're making a promise. And obviously, this is an old movie; everyone's seen it. There's no spoilers here. They deliver on this promise, and so
for sure.
I like how they just tee it up and then swing.
I think it's a very simple movie.
Yes, it's a linear plot. There's not a ton of twists.
And I think in this case, that serves the movie really well. It's part of what makes it work so well is the simplicity of it.
Because the story here isn't really, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, but the story of this movie it's a revenge because this crime scene that they're investigating is a murder. There's a dead lady and there's a guy who got thrown out a window.
And she's not
Oh,
dead
she's
yet.
put into it. Yeah, she's not dead yet. She's put into an ambulance, and then later we learn that she dies. So basically, we learn that this is a crime scene, and then we also learn that crows bring back souls to bring revenge, and so. Basically, they've set up a plot to where, okay, this is going to be just a revenge movie. It's not actually a revenge movie.
Oh?
It's a love story. This is a love story. This is an inverted love story because throughout the movie, so it begins with the death, and then throughout the movie, Eric has continued regular flashbacks of himself falling in love with Shelley and proposing to her and all of that. So this is a love story that is nested inside a revenge fantasy.
Okay.
And so that's why this movie works, is because it's not just a linear slaughter fest, because it's a slaughter fest.
Yeah.
But it is a love story where you care about a character you essentially never meet, Shelley. And you then root for Eric to commit heinous murder because you also love Shelley. That's the entire premise of the movie. And they don't hide the ball.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what you're saying there. We also meet Officer Albrecht in this, played by the great Ernie Hudson from Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters fame, I loved it when I saw it. I was like, oh yeah, it's awesome. Like I was pretty happy because you know what kid didn't like Ghostbusters?
Oh, that's great. We'll get to Ghostbusters eventually, Diver.
Do we do whole franchise or do just one?
Just the first one.
Okay, I think we can stop there.
And so Albrecht seems to be, and I have little notes about the differences and similarities to the comic because Albrecht and
this whole opening's way different than the comic.
Yeah, and Captain Hook, the detective from the comic book, they've combined those. Albrecht is the beat cop and Hook is the captain that's investigating the murder, and they combine them into one character. And I actually like that. It's more streamlined. I feel
a lot easier.
A lot of the decisions where they veered away from the comic book were improvements and not taking away from the story.
Yeah, I read the comic and in preparation for this, and I think honestly that this is a slimmer, more streamlined tale.
Yeah,
and it works a bit better than the comic book, which is a bit meandering.
Yeah, well, it's because those original, little sidebar on this, the original 4 issues that Caliber Press put out, starting I think in '86, I think when the first one came out, and then continuing on into the early '90s, and then it stayed unfinished until Tundra, which was another small press that was run by Kevin Eastman, who was one of the Ninja Turtle creators, republished those original 4. I think he did them as kind of oversized comics where 1 and 2 were in one book and then 3 and 4 were in the other one. And then finally, in like 1993, I want to say, that 5th issue finally came out. And stylistically, from issue 1 to issue 5, he doesn't even draw the same. Like,
yeah, for sure.
There's so many years in between them, and the story kind of, like you said, meandered along as they were coming out.
Yeah.
So this is just, they've tightened it up and made it more cohesive and a more singular vision.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we meet Albrecht, and he's a beat cop, and he's kind of, he seems to have a heart. Because when the young girl skateboards up and they're putting Shelley, who's on a backboard, what do they call those things?
Stretcher.
Like, with her
gurney,
her neck immobilized and the thing in her mouth and stuff. He basically tells the girl, whose name is Sarah, that she'll be fine, and that he tells her some sweet lies. He's just sort of a nice guy.
And Sarah's a street kid, and she smells bullshit immediately. She's like, "You're lying to me, just like you lied to Shelley. Eric's dead."
Yeah, because he wouldn't tell Shelley that Eric was dead. And yeah, I mean, Sarah's dressed cool. She's wearing Docs. She has on like fishnets on her arms.
Yeah, she's sort of like this perfect goth grunge kid of the 90s.
Yeah, I like that it's not just grunge, not just goth. It was that proper moment of the early 90s where goth meets grunge was kind of the thing. Well, like you could see the fishnets through the ripped knees and the oversized pants.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's a little bit like I think it is with kids now, where they're kind of pulling from everywhere.
Yeah.
But in the 90s, we called ourselves alternative, and it was such a grab bag that covered everything from hippie to rivet head, and it was all alternative. Like, it was just this huge thing.
I mean, it was kind of an interesting time. Here, see that if we have any young divers, they're going to just call us boomers. But I mean, I was a metalhead, but I also would sometimes have black nail polish, or sometimes be wearing a goth thing, or Typo Negative was a big crossover. And so I think a lot of people in any of those alternative scenes, whether you're a punk rocker or a metalhead or whatever, you borrowed from the other scenes pretty liberally, and it wasn't like a territorial thing. It was more like that guy is also into this. That's cool. Yeah. It was kind of a positive connotation that you could rep multiple different things at once. And Sarah's definitely doing that.
Oh, for sure. And then we cut to 1 year later. Inexplicably, Sarah hasn't aged at all, but we'll just brush over that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sarah's there. She's visiting the graves. She puts a bouquet of flowers down for Shelley and a single white rose for Eric. Mm-hmm. You're a corvid enthusiast.
Yeah.
Should we just call it out right now? That crow is a raven.
Well, if you want to get all technical about it, the crow in this graveyard scene, it either is a raven or a large-billed crow, which is a Eurasian variant, not common to North America. So I'm going to go ahead and call it a raven.
Yeah. According to my research, all of the crows the trained crows they used in this movie were all ravens.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the one particular crow who's like kind of the hero crow, his name is Magic.
Nice.
And he is actually in all 4 crow movies, even the bad ones. He kept coming back.
Nice. Well, I mean, he has to bring the souls of the dead back to make the wrong things right.
You got a job, you do it. Yeah, and so we see Sarah visit the grave, and then we cut over to Albrecht. He's hanging out at the hot dog stand, Maxi Dogs, and Sarah skates up. They have some cute banter.
Yeah, we get a little more Sarah monologue in there, like at the gravesite and all of that, and it tells the story, and I think that it's not too bad. I'm normally very anti-child actor, but I actually think this actress might just be old enough to get past that discrimination that I have, because it doesn't come off as false.
No, I think she's very naturalistic,
and I think maybe they just cast a person who could kind of be themselves. And just kind of be yourself and do this stuff and film it, They weren't asking her to pretend to be somebody she wasn't.
So shouts to Rochelle Davis that plays Sarah.
Yeah, she's really good in this movie.
And she's just like, her IMDb, she didn't continue acting until more recently, and she's done some like indie horror stuff. So yeah, she's an interesting young lady. We cut over to T-Bird and the gang, and they're torching an arcade. And T-Bird's talking about how Lake Erie caught on fire because of the pollution.
Yeah.
It's not exactly true. It was, I think, the Cuyahoga River that caught on fire, but I'll give it to him. It's mostly true.
Yeah, I mean, and I like this scene because this is kind of an establishing shot for who these guys are. This is T-Bird's gang. We've got their leader T-Bird, and we have Fun Boy. We've got Tintin, and we've got Skank.
Yeah,
and these characters are awesome. Like they're great villains because you love to hate them.
Yeah,
they're and the acting for every single one of them is very good.
This is a movie of unredeemable villains. With
even the hero is pretty brutal and does some bad shit. So,
but I think that's you're talking about the storytelling tricks. Part of the way you can justify your hero being brutal if your villains are without remorse and just have no redeeming value.
Yeah, and I think that probably of this little gang, and of course we'll get to Top Dollar later. He's horrible, but I mean of this gang, the most irredeemable one is Tintin because he's just the most sinister, brutal killer of them all. Yeah. The other guys are just kind of like drinking hooligan idiot murderers, but like Tintin is just like a fucking Terminator.
He's the most sadistic, definitely. And he's gonna be the first one to die.
And Tintin meets Eric Draven is the opening to the comic book. Pretty much.
No, pretty close. There's a prologue, and then Tintin is the first one. But Tintin in the comic is quite a bit different because the movie Tintin looks like the Top Dollar from the comic.
Yeah, That's true. Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty crazy. These guys are smashing up this arcade, and they put a bomb in there.
Yeah.
And they blow the place up, and they do the whole cool guys walk away from explosions, and they drive off in a cool old car.
Yeah, it's like a 75 Thunderbird, where the T-Bird gets his
and
name
it's got this sweet ass blower out of the hood. It's a pretty cool land yacht.
It's a very Detroit muscle car.
Yeah.
James O'Barr, the comic is set in Detroit, the movie is set in Detroit, and James O'Barr is a Michigander.
Okay.
And so that Motor City musclehead thing, he loves drawing cars. You can tell from not just from The Crow, but other comics he's done. He draws that Thunderbird, and he draws Barracuda all the time. That's what Eric drives, the Barracuda.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like the cars in this movie. They're not really as huge of a character, but this particular Thunderbird is pretty. Yeah, it's pretty important.
And then we cut back to the grave, and we get to see Eric claw his way out of the grave, and he's being led around by the Crow, and the Crow leads him to a dumpster with a pair of combat boots in it.
Yeah, I mean, when he's clawing his way out of the grave, he's like screaming in pain, and he's in agony.
Yeah,
he's having these really. He's having these, I don't know, agony visions or whatnot. And then there's some like really cool camera work and whatnot, where the Crow is like, they give you the illusion that you're from Eric's perspective, and the Crow is kind of like flying right down at you and stuff like that. And it just looks really cool. It's kind of like a really nice, dark, grim fantasy vibe.
Yeah. And sometimes you get shots that are through the Crow's eye, and they kind of put like not quite a fisheye lens, but they put like a filter on the lens, and you give that Crow eye view of things. And we'll shout out the director many times probably, but so Alex Proyas, he wanted to shoot the movie in black and white, like the comic book.
Really cool.
And the studio, of course, we're not giving you money to make a black and white movie in 1994. So it's like they went as close to black and white as they possibly could. It's the most
a black
desaturated
and white cut out there.
No, they never. This is before the days of the black and white cuts of movies like Logan and Justice League.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Because now you can color grade it digitally, and it doesn't involve using different film. Then it would have been different film.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I just think it was kind of funny that he found boots just in his size in the dumpster.
The Crow found them.
Yeah, it's quite lucky. And then it's funny because he. When he puts them on, and he like only partially like laces them up or whatnot, and he has that kind of thing that was common in the 90s with the boots not fully tied.
I hate it.
Open sloppy look. But one of our divers used to rock that look from time to time back in the day. Shout out to Lance in Florida, who would
do the unlaced boots,
who would rock the black unlaced boots sometimes.
I have it in my notes to contemplate the blisters you'd get from wearing wet, unlaced combat boots with no socks.
Oh, God.
It just seems like, that just seems like murder. It's a good thing he's already dead. It's because that's really bad. So there's a missing element here. There was a character called the Skeleton Cowboy that's played by Michael Berry from The Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah.
And the Skeleton Cowboy was sort of Eric's guide in the earlier version of the film. And then after Brandon Lee passed away, they cut those scenes and streamlined it. Basically, the Crow is the one and only guide.
Yeah.
And I think actually probably makes the movie tighter and better for it.
Okay.
But the Skeleton Cowboy would be explaining things, like expositing to Eric the rules of being.
He was the Watson.
Yeah, he is the guy that tells you, he's like, well, you have to be focused on the mission, and you can't be killed as long as you're doing that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think it's good that it's not there. It's a really minor element from the comic book. It's only in a couple of panels early on in it, and mostly the Crow is his guide. So I actually think this is a good improvement to the story.
Yeah, I think this is way better. I really liked this. It was important to streamline the comic books.
Yeah,
because I think that when James O'Barr was writing them, and this is just pure speculation, obviously he wrote them from a place of his own anguish and whatnot, but yeah. I don't think he did a lot of work on the plotting and storytelling aspects of this.
No,
I think this was just kind of from the heart. Just kind of go for it. He was definitely riding by the seat of his pants. He wasn't really trying to do like tight narrative beats.
No, he was just processing grief, because what happened was his fiance was killed by a drunk driver. She wasn't assaulted like Shelley is in the movie, but he still had that sense of that. She was taken away unfairly. Mm-hmm. And this story was his grief processing and sort of his revenge fantasy of getting back at those people that took her away from him.
Yeah. And so I don't think he was really trying to keep it tight. He was just kind of doing stuff.
Just kind of following his muse, basically.
Yeah. And so then Eric returns to the old apartment, which is got some like crime scene tape or whatever, but it's pretty much exactly as he left it. And his cat is still there.
Yeah, Gabriel. I love this cat. It's from the comic. I don't know who's been feeding Gabriel for the year. He's just been living that stray cat life, I guess. But he's still hanging around the old house. And he triggers a nasty flashback of the memories of Eric and Shelley's murders.
Yeah, it's a really grisly and brutal scene that they portray. And the murder scene with the gang, and it really sets up the gang to be just utterly horrible. It makes you hate them. And then it also lets you understand why Eric came back, because it was just so dark. And he does this thing at the end where he's kind of like moving around the apartment and feeling pain, and at the end he like jumps up and grabs the window, the round frame of the window, and he swings out and then swings back in, and he lands, and you see the broken shards of glass with blood on them and whatnot. It's pretty cool. It's a really kind of gut-wrenching scene, the whole thing.
Yeah. And I want to shout out Brandon Lee's stunt double, Chad Storlson, who does most of this scene, because you never see Eric's face. So most of that stuff that's shot from behind, where he's climbing up the fire escape and he pushes open the door, that's mostly all the stuntman.
Okay.
And anytime when his face is shown, it's because they've digitally added Brandon Lee's face onto it.
Oh wow.
And he does a lot of heavy lifting in this moment here. Also in like the rooftop guitar playing scenes and stuff, he fills in a lot of gaps in the movie.
Okay, well, I mean that's cool that they were able to do that in order to finish things up. But yeah, so this is a really brutal scene, and it just kind of sets the tone for Eric's back, and this is why he's back, and he's reliving this pain, and then it cuts to the criminals, and they're in a bar.
Yeah, we see our whole gang. They're at the pit is their hangout bar, and we meet Sarah's mother, Darla, who's a put upon barmaid, morphine junkie, and sort of Fun Boy's girlfriend. Yeah,
so T-Bird is the leader, and he swallows a bullet and chases it with a shot and puts a cigar out on his tongue, and people are all like, oh my god, you're so hardcore. And then Tintin does the same thing.
Yeah, they're all like taking shots and drinking bullets,
literal bullets.
Yeah, I mean, divers, don't do this at home. This is a good way to get lead poisoning. And you better you hope you pass it. You don't want a bullet just hanging out in your large intestine.
Yeah, and so then they start arguing. He's like, "Fuck you, Tintin," and then all out of nowhere, T-Bird just starts, "Fire it up, fire it up," and it mends all differences, and this might have been one of my most quoted lines in my youth. The "Fire it up,
fire it up." Yeah. I do think of that constantly. There's a lot of lines from this movie that even, like you pointed out, the thing that Skank says later about, "This is the really real world."
Yeah.
I mean, I've said that, the really real world, like those two, really and real world, that's a phrase that I've used, and I probably didn't even remember where it came from.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's part of my vocabulary, and it came directly from this movie.
Yeah. So back at the apartment, Eric is getting painted up like the comedy mask he has there. And Cure song "Burn" is playing to excellent effect. And this will be the first time I want to shout out the soundtrack, because this is such a good soundtrack.
This is where I brought it up too in my show notes, and it's really so good. I love this song, and this whole soundtrack is 5 out of 5. I listen to this on repeat so many times. It's such a great soundtrack. I don't love every song, but I like every song. But I love this one.
Which one don't you love? Let's see if it's the same one.
I don't even remember.
I don't like the Helmet song.
Okay.
I've just never liked that band.
Helmet's all right. I mean, the thing is I think they're all decent, but there's a few songs like this song and the Stone Temple Pilots song. There's just some really good ones.
Yeah, and so this song, The Cure...
Machines of Loving Grace, too.
Yeah, that's such a good one. Golgotha Tenement Blues.
Yeah.
The Cure recorded this song for the movie. They had requested The Hanging Garden, which is a song that gets featured in the graphic novel. And Robert Smith was such a fan of the comic, basically, that he was like, "I want to do an original song." And so they recorded this song. It's really just him and the drummer.
Yeah, I read that. This was a 2-person recording. Drummer played the drums, and Robert Smith did everything else.
And there's a lot of texture in this song.
Yeah, the guitar playing's great. I really love the bass line.
Yeah,
it's just really good.
Robert Smith is he's quite an instrumentalist. And so the soundtrack, we go back and forth between Graham Revell's score and these needle drops of tracks from the soundtrack album, and sometimes they're diegetic songs where it's in the world of the movie and the characters are listening to it. And then sometimes they're non-diegenic or incidental songs where it's just giving us the mood of what's going on. It's just chef's kiss. I love the way music is used.
Yeah, the music is used really well, and then just the soundtrack is a standalone great soundtrack. It's one of my favorites. This one and Spawn from the 90s. They're both really good soundtracks.
That's got some bangers on it. Well, I have to admit that was not a great movie, but that soundtrack has some bangers. Cut to Tintin over at Gideon's pawn shop, and he's selling, goods that he has taken from people he's murdered. He's a monster.
And so Tintin, if you haven't seen this movie and you're just living vicariously through us, Tintin he's played by Lawrence Mason.
Yeah.
He's kind of a severe looking black guy. He's wearing a long leather coat. He's got knives on like a harness sheath, kind of like you'd see like a cop with a gun.
Yeah.
Like a detective, that type of deal.
Or like Machete, Danny
Trejo.
Yeah,
it's true. And so he just looks straight up badass in this outfit, and the actor Lawrence Mason just oozes menace in this role. Yeah,
he's had a long career as a character actor, but this is really, I think this is his breakout role. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, he's cool. Like, he looks really cool.
Yeah, he does. He looks really cool.
Of the whole gang, he's the only one of these guys where you're like, yeah, that guy's cool.
Yeah, the rest of them, you're like, that guy looks like a dirtbag.
Yeah, all the rest of them look like dirtbags. He looks like a murderer from a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And Gideon's pawn shop. Who's that that guy that plays Gideon, John Polito. He looks exactly like the comic book.
He really does. It's like they put out a casting call for and put out the comic book picture.
Yeah.
And the mirror walks in the door. I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh my God, he looks exactly like the comic book.
It's like, do we have a 5'8", overweight, bald Italian guy with a mustache? It's like, we got him. We got your guy.
Yeah, that was it's crazy how accurate it was. And so they're like, he's in this pawn shop, and it kind of, this is a really good scene of kind of who Tintin is. He's menacing the pawn shop owner to like take these goods and give him a good deal for him. He's just really shitty to him.
And he calls him a saprophyte, which I had to look up and I've probably thought of that line or quoted it in my head a million times and never knew what saprophyte was. It's a plant or fungus that lives on dead or decaying organic matter. And that is such a literate, like crazy insult, because he is this parasite that's feeding off the dead, because he's where everyone sells the stuff they take from people they kill. But yeah, so Tintin's a reader.
Yeah.
He's a murderer and a reader.
Yeah, he's kind of a sharp, he's a sharp dude. And at some point in here, like after he leaves Gideon's shop, the 9 Inch Nails song comes in. Yeah, and that's really, really good too.
9 Inch Nails, they're covering Joy Division, Dead Souls, which was one of the chapter titles in the book. Yeah. Joy Division of all bands is the one that is referenced over and over in the comic. Basically, all the chapter titles are Joy Division songs. So this is a double whammy. 9 Inch Nails was hot at that point, and this really was a great way of tying it to the comic. And we get this. It's not real rooftops. Real rooftops aren't really that close together, but we get a great like superhero running across the rooftop montage.
Yeah, Eric stalking Tintin.
And I think this is Brandon Lee. I don't think this is the stuntman. And you get, it's kind of our first glimpse of his physicality too. Yeah. And he's like, I thought there's a sort of animal grace to how he moves, which shouldn't be surprising with his heritage or whatever.
Yeah. If you don't know, he's Bruce Lee's son. Yeah. And he's a hell of a martial artist in his own right. And so he moves like a cat. He's
totally like a cat.
He's fluid, he's graceful.
But brutal too. Like it's that mixture of gracefulness and brutality. And the crow leads him to Tintin, and they catch up and they have a little chat. In the alley.
Eric just jumps off the building and just falls, like doesn't land on his feet, just falls on his back and lands on the ground and gets up.
Yeah. And I think that was just a little testing of what am I capable of? And it's like, apparently this.
Yeah, apparently a fall that would kill people. And he just gets up and he goes and he confronts Tintin.
Yeah. He confronts him, and he kind of lays his crimes out. And Tintin, barely he's murdered so many people. He barely remembers this. And he thinks he's gonna dispatch this crackhead easily. And Eric just plugs him full of knives.
Yeah, and part of the scene I really love and I appreciate. Because I'm a vocalist in a band. When Brandon Lee is acting and he's interrogating Tintin, he screams at him, but the scream is it's primal and it's legible. That's the wrong word, but it's very intelligible. But his voice distorts when he does it, and that is difficult. To make your voice distort but have it still be intelligible. I I know, because that's my jam. And he does it so well. The acting is perfect.
Yeah.
Brandon Lee just nails that dramatic confrontation before the fighting even starts. And then the fighting happens, and it's awesome because it's like knives and back and forth. And Tintin is so overconfident. He thinks, no big deal. He has some cool lines and some really slick posing with his knives.
Yeah.
And he throws them, and it's just nothing. And he just gets completely iced.
Yeah, because Eric, he slaps one knife away, and then he catches one and throws it back at Tintin and pins him to like a stack of pallets. And then he comes up, and we don't actually see him pincushion the guy. It's left to our imagination.
Well, and then later on, when they're picking up Tintin's body, he's got just tons of knives sticking out of his chest. I don't even think he had that many knives.
He had a lot of knives. Yeah, so that was something. Poetic justice is a theme that runs through this. Kind of people get hoisted on their own petards. And
oh man, listen to your vocabulary.
I love that phrase. But Tintin liked to play with knives, as Eric says, and it came back to get him.
Yeah.
And Eric picked up the iconic leather trench coat.
I love that he stole Tintin's leather trench, because that's perfect for this character. I love it.
I'll say this, same thing I said last episode about David Bowie's fedora. You're not necessarily going to look like Brandon Lee if you put on a leather trench coat. So a lot of Goombas put on that leather trench coat and think they look like the Crow, and they look really terrible.
I think you can look cool in a leather trench coat.
A cool guy can look cool in a leather trench coat.
I was going to say, you probably need to... The leather trench coat won't make you cool, but if you're already cool, it will be a good accessory.
Yeah. I agree with that.
So then it cuts to kind of a nightclub scene.
Yeah.
And there's
Trash.
a band, Medicine is playing on stage. And I really dig this song.
I like this song a lot too, and I like this club. It's Trash is the name of the club. It's got a big sign on the roof. This is actually an abandoned cement factory in South Carolina, I believe. But this is really true to Detroit of the time. I have some friends from Michigan, and real estate being in decaying Rust Belt places like Detroit being what it is. Clubs that take up whole industrial buildings and are multiple floors, that's not unheard of. So
that'd be really cool to go to.
This is pretty plausible. And we T-Bird and Skank arrive at the club, and T-Bird goes upstairs to see Grange, who's the right-hand man for the big boss, Top Dollar. Grange is played by the great Tony Todd from Candyman. A lot of excellent character actors in this movie. Yeah,
and you get a glimpse at this, this kind of creepy hot lady with this cool back tattoo. It's she's in a shower, and the villain, Top Dollar, who played by Michael Wincott, is kind of peeping on, and it's just kind of creepy, especially when you learn that that's a sister.
Yeah, and they just had a lethal threesome with some girl.
Yeah, she's just laying dead in their bed.
Yeah, which this whole thing got described by Grange. She said the man he's taking a meeting.
Yeah,
and it's like, again, with the just irredeemable villains, like these people are horrible.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. And then his sister, kind of looks at the corpse and says, "I like her eyes." And it's just
foreshadowing.
Really grim and kind of a dark scene. And I like how they kind of set these characters up as just these nasty people.
Yeah. So Bai Ling playing Micah, she's not a character from the comic. She's original to the movie. Top Dollar is in the comic in a much different form, much more like Tintin. But Michael Wincott, man, he's so good as this just horrible villain. And
I like this version better.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a cooler Top Dollar.
Oh, for sure. And the $1 million question, is that his real hair?
No.
You don't think?
I don't think so.
It is majestic.
It is majestic. It might be. I mean, they have stylists and all that, but
maybe it's extension. Because parts of it looks real natural, but it's so long. Like,
yeah, he looks really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it kind of cuts. Then it cuts over to like that shitty club.
Yeah, back at the pit.
And Sarah goes in and she's looking for Darla.
Yeah, you know, when I was a kid, I always thought Darla was a pretty attractive lady. And now she's the right age for me. It's like, now that I'm in my 40s, it makes more sense.
Well, I always thought Darla looked like a strung out kind of junkie.
Well, a little bit. I think she looks like a rough around the edges sort of Drew Barrymore. Like if there's
real rough around.
Yeah, she's a Drew Barrymore with some city miles.
Yeah, if I were to, I mean, I was never one who was all about the movie ladies or whatever, but I definitely think Micah is the token. She's the hot chick in this
the hot
movie.
lady.
Yeah, she's definitely the hot lady in this
Fair
movie.
enough. So Sarah comes in to check on her mom, Darla, and Darla, she's off work and she's getting ready to hook up with Funboy, who lives there at the pit. He lives upstairs.
Yeah.
And Sarah, Darla hands her some of her tip money and says to go buy some food. And Sarah's like, somebody already brought me dinner. The police.
Yeah.
And, she knows her mom is associates with criminals. And it's meant to be a dig.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then, she goes up and interrupts Darla and Funboy.
Mm-hmm.
And Funboy basically makes fun of Sarah, and I was just like, what kind of fucking mom sits there while her kid is getting made fun of? What a joke.
Yeah, man. Those opioids are a real problem.
Yeah. It's pretty gnarly.
Meanwhile, the Crow leads Eric over to Gideon's pawn shop, and he goes in looking for something in an engagement ring. And this is all almost straight from the comic, this whole scene.
And I love that Eric goes in there and quotes Edgar Allan Poe.
He kind of misquotes it.
Well,
but
whatever.
Yeah, you get the impression. You get the idea. I love that. And I love how Gideon rhymes it. Because he says something, you heard me rapping on your door. And he's like, you owe me a fucking new door. and he adds another line to the poem. And he has this classic shit on me.
Yeah, he shoots Eric and in the hand, and it goes through, and then it visibly closes and heals up. And Gideon's like, shit on me, shit on me.
Yeah, and Eric pins him with one of Tintin's knives, stabs him through the hand, pins him to the table. And just kind of rummages through the pawn shop,
he
dumping kerosene and looking for things.
Yeah, he gives him a real ass kicking, and he delivers some super menacing, intimidating lines, and Gideon complies.
Yeah, and this is some when we talk about the physicality of Brandon Lee, he does all these he goes in and out of doing sort of mime clowning movements and dancing and into combat stuff. He jumps up and is hanging off the rafters at one point and smacks him in the face with a bat, and he just does all this stuff so effortlessly. He seems lighter than air, the way he moves around.
Yeah, it's like you'd think he was on wires or something, but he wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think so. No,
he's just a dude that's done a bunch of kung fu movies
and so finally he gets the ring, and he grabs himself a guitar as he's heading out the door.
Gotta get that guitar.
Yeah, we need it for later scenes. And as he's leaving and Gideon's threatening him, he turns around and you have to be an idiot to not see he had been dumping gas and kerosene all over the place.
Yeah, and he has a shotgun.
And he loads the shotgun up with rings.
Yes.
And then blasts the pawn shop, and it explodes spectacularly in a way I don't think it really would.
Oh no, I loved how he poured the rings into the barrel of the shotgun, and then he shot the place, and it exploded spectacularly. But I just loved how he loaded the rings in the shotgun. It it reminded me of that one. What was it, Young Guns 2, when he loads the dimes into the double barrel shotgun and he shoots the, not following.
I'm gonna bum you out, man.
Have you not seen Young Guns and Young Guns 2?
I've never actually watched those movies. I've seen
They're
little bits.
so good. Even the second one, it's not the greatest sequel ever made, because that would be Empire Strikes Back, but it's very good.
Future episode.
Yeah, for sure.
We have to get to that.
These two movies are really good. Anyway, there's a scene in the Young Guns where he loads a bunch of dimes into a shotgun and shoots somebody, and this reminded me of that.
Yeah,
very cool.
And then we see the cops finding Tintin's body.
It's grim. So many knives.
Yeah, he's got all these knives, and then he's got there's a big crow painted on the wall in blood.
Yeah,
and we get.
We meet this other cop.
We meet the other
Detective douchebag.
Detective Torres. You know how Officer Albrecht is a good cop. And you know how you know that? Because like all good cops, he's being constantly shit on and ground down by the other cops. Mm-hmm. Because it's miserable to be a good cop. It's better to just go with the program if you're going to be a cop at all. Because it's a losing battle.
Yeah, this whole I call it tropey police drama that has been played out in a million other movies. I was just like, okay, I don't need this cop in this moment. I mean, he's a shitbird detective and a gritty street cop, and it's kind of it's cliche. And there's a couple of funny lines. He's like, "What's that?" And he's like, "I'd say it's blood."
Yeah, I call it blood, detective. You probably write it up as graffiti. Yeah, and we know Albert is the cool guy, and Torres is the dickhead. I think fair point. It's a cliche, but that's a cliche that's rooted in reality. Mm-hmm. And so shortly after this, Albert arrives at the pawn shop and has a little talk, little head to head with Eric. Mm-hmm. And Eric, kind of prances around and is doing his mime thing. And I love the way Brandon Lee can just shift gears with this character. He has a lot of fun with it. And he pulls a Batman and disappears when people start looting the pawn shop, including cameo from James O'Barr. You see him lifting a TV out of the pawn shop.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
And it's where I put this in my notes that Proyas loves these circular tracking shots because the camera circles all the way around Albrecht, and there's several of these in the movie. It's something he goes back to over and over again. Yeah,
I mean, I thought this was really cool, and the banter between them is cool. Eric's like, "I say I'm dead and I move."
Yeah,
it's like it's got some really good kind of I don't know, some pitter patter back and forth.
Yeah, they have good chemistry with each other.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Good scene, and then Eric. He pulls the Batman. He's gone. Yeah. And then we cut to Top Dollar and Micah, and they're burning an eye and doing a bunch of coke. Did I miss something?
You skipped a kind of an important little moment where Sarah's leaving the bar and she's going to skateboard out in the street, and Eric saves her.
Oh, you're right. I did.
And Eric, he loves the drama and can't help but quote one of his lyrics to Sarah.
It can't rain all the time.
Yeah. And she's like, "Eric," and turns around and he's gone.
And he's gone.
Yeah. But yes, then, well, no, actually, you're way ahead, aren't you?
No. Actually, no. I'm pretty sure that it cuts to Top Dollar. They're doing coke. T-Bird enters and he says, "One of my crew got himself perished."
Oh yeah.
And then it's playing some crazy music that sounds to me like Dead Can Dance. And then it cuts to Sarah and Eric rescues her.
You're right. So, okay.
It's
That's
okay.
my bad.
It doesn't really matter.
It's Rollins Band, the crazy music.
The Dead Can Dance music.
Yeah, when they're freebasing eyeballs and snorting coke.
Yeah, because it gets a little bit crazy, but I do love T-Bird's line that he says, "One of my crew got himself perished." I got a good laugh at that one. I don't know. I like the. It almost reminds me of like Deadwood style banter.
And we got a David Patrick Kelly, man, from the Warriors.
Oh yeah,
this is another great character actor, and I guess that's just someone. Just a little behind the scenes trivia. The Warriors was allegedly that's Brandon Lee's favorite movie, and he was pretty starstruck about David Patrick Kelly. So it's just a fun little aside.
Warriors
there.
is a great movie.
Yeah, that's future podcast material.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we see this weird shot of Top Dollar and his sister, and then T-Bird meets up with them and basically explains Tintin got killed. Top Dollar doesn't really seem to give a shit. He just is like, whatever.
He seems frustrated about stuff happening that he didn't authorize.
Yeah, it's more about control, and it's less about Tintin.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Albrecht is doing, I call it unauthorized detective work. He's digging back into the Shelley Webster, Eric Draven file, drawing clown faces onto the pictures of Eric.
Yeah, and I do kind of love it that all the scenes in this movie it's just raining constantly.
Oh yeah,
like just it's always raining.
It can rain all the time.
Yeah, it does in this movie.
Yeah, and the crow leads Eric to his next victim, which would be Fun Boy. He's up in his apartment over the pit, shooting up morphine with Darla.
And Machines of Loving Grace is playing.
I love this song so much.
This is one of the best ones.
Yeah. And it's one of the places where it's used. This is diegetic. You see Fun Boy's cool stereo with the equalizer going. So they're listening to this music.
Yeah.
And Eric comes in and sort of, they're nodding on morphine, and so they're not in their right head, and he kind of plays with the disorientation to kind of fuck with them, and he plays with his food a little bit before he eats it, metaphorically speaking. He doesn't eat them.
Yeah, and it's great because he's messing around with Fun Boy, and Fun Boy pulls the gun, and he's like, "Take your shot, Fun Boy, you got me dead bang." And he's like, "You're seriously fucked up. You need professional help." And this is coming from a complete psycho.
Yeah.
Like, I just loved it. And then Eric tells this classic Jesus joke.
Yeah, I have it written down if you didn't.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because he shoots him and he's like, "Jesus Christ." He goes, "Jesus Christ," walks into a hotel. He hands the innkeeper 3 nails, and Fun Boy's shooting him through this whole thing repeatedly. And he asks him, "Can you put me up for the night?" And he smacks the gun away from Fun Boy, which causes him to shoot himself in the leg.
In the leg, yeah.
And then he goes, "Oh God, look what you done to my sheets."
And he drags him into the bathroom. And the acting here is really great. Michael Massey plays Fun Boy. And I just thought it was really cool because he's playing just a total psychopath.
Yeah.
And it kind of cuts away. You don't see what he does to Fun Boy. It's pretty much kind of like the Tintin scene.
Yeah.
But then he grabs Darla, and he like grabs her, and you see the drugs come out of the injection site.
Yeah, and he has this quote, and I forget where the quote comes from, but he says, "The mother is the word for God on the lips and minds of all children," and that's straight from the comic too. So there's a cut scene here.
Okay.
Because as you notice after this, Eric's all wrapped up in duct tape and electrical tape.
Yeah.
And the jacket has a big cut on it. So what was supposed to happen, and I think a lot of this I think was filmed, is Fun Boy kind of comes to and picks up the razor blade, and him and Eric have more of a fight.
Okay.
And Eric doesn't heal from these wounds because he's off mission right now. The rules of when you're brought back by the crow is you just have to be revenge focused. And he's on a tangent
to help Sarah,
and that's not part of the revenge. And so anything that happens when he's off mission, he's liable for and can be injured and won't heal from it.
Yeah, I definitely noticed the costume change with the black duct tape or electrical tape or whatever around his midsection, and his coat got some tatters. But, it could just be explained away. He's a crazy guy jumping around in the night,
So as the scene plays out, Grange gets there, Tony Todd, and he catches Eric just as he's leaving. He gives him a wink as he dips out the window. And then goes to visit detective. I call him detective, but Officer Albrecht, who's no longer a detective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he gets, Albrecht is hanging out in his apartment, just in his boxers and t-shirt, and is still wearing his policeman hat. And Eric comes in and hands him a beer, and they're kind of talking about what happened, and he receives a psychic vision from Albrecht of Sarah as she went through intensive care for, what did they say, 30 hours? It's
some insane amount.
Yeah, she clung to life for quite a while.
Yeah, and at some point in here, I think it's just before he goes and meets up with Albrecht, there's the you get the scene of Fun Boy with all the needles sticking out of his chest. He's just got dozens of them.
He's got all the needles, and then the crow drawn in blood on his chest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
very grim.
Albrecht asks, I believe it's, Albrecht asks, "Are you some kind of ghost?" And he says, "I don't know what I am. But you know what he is? From mythology. He's a revenant."
Oh, yeah. Because he's not a zombie and he's not a ghost. But revenant is...
He's a revenant. He needs to settle a grudge, and then he gets to die. But yeah, I just thought that was cool. It's it's a classic mythology story.
Eric didn't play enough D&D.
No, well, I actually learned this from Vampire the Masquerade and Wraith the Oblivion.
Okay,
but yeah, it is a thing, and I think it's pretty cool here. The scene where he's he shows up and then he's gone again from Albrecht's house.
Well, and
his apartment, I guess. This
time he leaves out the front door, and this was a largely improvised scene between Hudson and Lee. A lot of this is not scripted, and those guys can banter, man. A lot of the movie hangs on that relationship to sort of to kind of tie things to the human world and humanize Eric, and it works really well. So we cut back over to Grange and Gideon. They're at Trash upstairs in Top Dollar's office, and they're explaining, what they've witnessed. The two of them, they're getting their stories together.
And Gideon does not know when to shut up. He's kind of a douchebag, an entitled douchebag.
He's an entitled douchebag, but he just lost his livelihood, and he expects the crime boss that he's in, sort of in service to make things right for him.
And I just love that he's kind of making demands of Top Dollar, and Top Dollar's just kind of listening. And then he goes over and he opens a vault on the wall.
Right.
And he opens it up, and it's filled with swords decoratively hung on the wall. And I'm just like, I want a sword vault. New life goal.
You got the space. Yeah, you should do that.
I could put one in here.
Make that happen.
Sounds expensive. But yeah, he opens a sword vault, and I'm like, okay, you cannot include a sword vault in a movie and not have the swords come into play.
It's Chekhov's sword vault.
Exactly. This is Chekhov's sword vault.
Okay. Yeah. And He does. He kind of lets Gideon finish all of his story, and they have a little laugh together, and then stabs him through the throat with a cutlass. You're the sword expert.
Yeah, it looked like a mortuary sword.
Okay.
It's kind of a thicker bladed sword than a rapier, but it still has a basket hilt like that.
Yeah.
So or it could also be a late period Highland claymore style, but there's several
It's
styles
not that long,
that it could
though.
be. No, claymores evolved from a two-handed sword to a single-handed basket-hilted sword in the late period. But it could be any of those somewhat wide-bladed or thicker-bladed basket-hilted swords. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
You and Top Dollar could have a long conversation
Yeah, we could.
about swords.
I like swords divers. So he runs him through, and I'm like, yes. And then the best part is he then grabs a gun and shoots him twice. I'm like, fuck, man.
Yeah, because he's not dying fast. He's still kind of gurgling and stuff. And I know there's a rock club downstairs, but this is implausible. I think you hear these gunshots.
Do you think they care? You're in Detroit, and a
You're
crime
used-
boss's lair.
Well, okay, so these two might get by it. Later, there's an honest to God, like John Woo gunfight.
Oh, yeah,
that happens
insane.
up there.
Nobody would ignore that. But two
Yeah.
gunshots ring out in the ghetto, and maybe ghetto's the wrong word. The industrial ruins of Detroit.
Yeah.
I think that might go ignored.
Yeah.
Then it kind of cuts over to Eric, and
Yeah.
he's playing guitar on a rooftop.
Yeah, he gets real emo about it, and he needs to go up on the roof and jam every once in a
It's
while.
kind of a somber little ditty, nothing very fancy. And I could tell, because they don't ever show Eric's face.
Yeah.
That was not.
Yeah, that's the
Brandon
stunt
Lee,
double,
because
I
his hands were too thick. Like it didn't look like Brandon Lee. But I mean, it seemed like the dude knew how to play guitar. It didn't seem like he was especially adept, but he was playing it.
Yeah. And that's Graham Revell again that composed the score. He does all the music for Hangman's Joke, which is Eric's band.
Yeah.
Sarah puts the Hangman's Joke LP on the turntable and it helpfully skips right on that. Can't rain all the time, can't rain all the time.
Yeah, that I like that part. I was singing along with it. You know, I went online and I looked up, like, you can buy a Hangman's Joke shirt on Etsy. It's pretty cool.
Crafters of Etsy, always making that niche merchandise.
Yeah, because if you wear that, the person who knows, they know.
Oh yeah, you're gonna make a friend for life at some show where you wear your Hangman's Joke T-shirt
For sure.
And so Skank and T-Bird, now they're the last two guys in the gang, and they have a little fire it up.
Two-man fire it up dance.
Two-man fire it up. It was funny. Lisa had a lot of sympathy for Skank, which surprised me, because he seems like he's developmentally delayed and is a little along for the ride with these other guys.
Well, even if he's not, handicapped or whatnot, he is definitely, he's a sympathetic psycho. I think that, like, she's onto something because he really cares about T-Bird. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those things, like, if you want to make a character likable, have them care about something else.
Yeah.
And the fact that they care about something else makes you think that they have value.
Yeah.
And so I think that Skank's love of T-Bird makes you like Skank, even if you hate T-Bird.
And it's, even though Skank has done horrible things, it seems like it's in the service of the gang. Like,
yeah, he's like a tag-along. He's kind of an idiot. It's hard to it's hard to make him responsible for any of this.
Yeah. I mean, spoiler alert, Eric holds him responsible for this.
Eric gives zero shits about the sympathetic nature of Skank.
But he sends T-Bird sends Skank into the store to get smokes and road beers, and then Eric pops up in the back of T-Bird's T-Bird, and they go for a little ride, and Skank goes, "What's this happy horse shit?" And he runs out there and gets just plowed by a Volkswagen Rabbit, like just drilled by it, and the guy gets out and is mad at him for hitting his car.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
And then, like, T-Bird and Eric are they're in the T-Bird.
Yeah.
And they speed by these cops, and the cop has this hot coffee and he spills it all over himself. He's like, "What the crap?"
What the crap? Yeah. And Skank, even though he just got hit by a car, carjacks the guy.
Yeah, he
hit him.
steals the little, what is it, like a Yugo or something?
No, it's a Volkswagen Rabbit.
Is it a Rabbit?
And they get into a 3-way car chase: the cop car, the T-Bird, and the Rabbit. And I thought this was all real cars. They didn't have the budget. It's models.
Wow.
A lot of this is done with models.
I did not even know that.
No, it just totally breezed past me until I read it. And so I'm like, again, whoever made these models, oh, so good.
Kudos to the effects people, because that I had no idea. It's, one thing that kind of struck me, maybe I'm just too much of a realist when I'm watching these, obviously a fantasy movie.
Yeah.
There's no way a cop would chase you that hard and like blast through a pallet of garbage in order to keep going. Like, they will not do that.
I don't think cops in Detroit in this time period would have chased you at all.
Just for speeding?
Just for speeding. It's not worth it.
No.
But it's drama. It's good drama.
It is. And so there's this car chase, and it's pretty damn good. And then the cops end up T-boning Skank in his crappy little car, and Eric and T-Bird get away.
Yeah. And Skank's indestructible, though, because he gets out and he limps after T-Bird and Eric. And Eric just goes and he duct tapes T-Bird into the car, and T-Bird liked to set fires. And so Mr. Poetic Justice, he decides he's going to set a fire in T-Bird's car, and T-Bird's car is just loaded with explosives.
I don't know where he got that. I guess T-Bird had him.
T-Bird had him, yeah, because he's an arsonist. That's his deal.
Yeah.
And so he drops like a phosphorus grenade in his lap, and like bungee cords his foot to the gas pedal and just sends him off.
And T-Bird, this is the scene when when Eric reveals, why he's doing it, because he always asks, "Do you remember a girl a year ago?" And he goes, "This is the really real world. There ain't no coming back." And that's where this is the really real world, which I have never stopped saying, probably will never stop saying.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because the car explodes and it kind of flies off the pier or whatever. And then Eric has taken a bottle of lighter fluid and he's drawn a crow on the concrete, and he lights it up, and it's this burning crow effigy thing. It just looks so fucking cool.
So iconic, man. Like, that's like, you talk about the posters and stuff from the movie. That image of him lighting the crow on fire, it was in the trailer for the movie.
Yeah, you got to have that in the trailer. It's too cool.
And it's just one of those images that sticks with you from this movie.
Yeah. And then it cuts over to Grange, who's checking out Eric's grave. He finds the open grave. Grange is the smart guy.
Yeah.
He's the smartest of the villains. It seems like he's even smarter than Top Dollar.
I think so. He's the guy that makes this all work.
Yeah.
You got to have that right-hand man, the fixer. Yeah. And Darla's cooking breakfast for Sarah. She's trying to straighten her life out after her near-death experience.
And she looks like a totally different person. And basically she's trying to, I guess, pretend like nothing has ever happened. She asks her, like, "How do you like your eggs?" And Sarah's kind of a hard ass, and she's like, "I don't like eggs." and then Darla's like, "Oh yeah, well, whatever, fuck this," or whatever.
Yeah,
she says.
She said, "I never was too good at this mommy shit anyway," and she's gonna dump the eggs.
And Sarah's like, "No, I like them over easy," or whatever. And they have like a touching scene there, and I thought that this was a really good scene in the movie, even though it was short. This scene was like less than 2 minutes. The reason I think it was important is because first of all, it's very sad. They're both jaded as fuck, and they've had very hard lives, and they're having a difficulty being normal. They don't even know how to be normal. But I think it's important that they close the book on Darla's arc.
Yeah.
This is Darla's resolution, and you don't even see her again after this. Really.
That's true.
And so this is the end of Darla's arc, and it's her happy ending, at this point in the movie. And it also adds to Sarah's arc that she is maybe just a little healing from her loss of her surrogate parents in Eric and Shelley. And so this is kind of a character moment for a C tier character in Darla and a B tier character in Sarah.
Yeah. But I think it's good. You need these things. I think this movie would be tough to take without the human moments too. It's like those are the things that make it connect with normal people and not just Psycho.
Yeah, and when you have the moments, we haven't really lingered on a lot of them, but throughout the movie are interspersed flashbacks that Eric has with Shelley, looking at pictures, and when he's going through the wedding rings, his eyes are closed, and he's doing it by like psychometry. Which is why I always thought he was a Malkavian.
Vampire?
Yeah, but, if he was going to be one, because that was what I was into at that time. But, like, he has these visions of the happy times. The love story plays out. You need the sweet, because if it wasn't so sweet, then the rest wouldn't be so horrific.
Yeah.
It would just make you numb to it. So this movie takes you on a ride up and down. And so we saw Darla at her absolute worst, strung out, just terrible. And now we get to see her at her best. Now she's got the resolution. So yeah, those positive movies are super important.
And Officer Albrecht gets himself suspended because Detective Torres is a dickhead.
Dick. For sure.
Basically.
And they're doing cliche cop shit.
Yeah.
But you do get to see T-Bird's charred ass corpse at this point. It's gross.
Oh, they had to identify him from dental records.
Yes.
Yeah, because he's fused to the car. Well, I mean, that white phosphorus is nothing to mess around with. That's as hot as it gets.
Where did he get Willie Pete? Like, that's not really gettable on the civilian market.
A lot of this stuff isn't.
Like, they're black market from Canada.
Yeah. It's just right across, what is that, Lake Huron right there? Or no, Erie. That's Erie. Huron is a little bit.
Yeah, I don't
My
know.
Michigan geography is a little rusty. Sarah goes over to Eric's apartment to see if he's there.
And it's boarded up, but a 12-year-old girl can pop the boards off with her bare hands, no tools, and minimal effort.
Yeah. Well,
good job, cops, or whoever boarded that
whoever boarded it up.
Probably landlord.
And that's a great, since you've mentioned landlord, the whole reason they got murdered is because they wanted to clear this block, right? Because
Top Dollar was trying to evict everyone.
They've done shit with this building since they vacated it.
I know, they had it for a year. Nobody's there, and they haven't done anything.
If you wanted to tear down the building for development purposes, pick a better neighborhood. But if you were going to do that, I feel like there would have been some action.
You should have either torn it down or collected another year worth of rent payments.
Yeah.
Bad business, Top Dollar.
Yeah. So Grange is slipping in some areas where he's making this work. Eric had been up there burning photos and being emo, as he does.
That's what you do.
Yeah. But he hides from Sarah. And so Sarah, she comes in and she picks up Gabriel, and he's finally going to have an actual home to go to, which is good.
And I mean, he's not just burning photos. Every photo he picks up, he has a flashback.
Right.
It's a memory.
Yeah, he's wallowing in trauma.
Yeah, he's really just sort of drinking it in like the sadness. And this is where you really can see, because he's taken off the jacket. He has the duct tape around the waist, kind of over the sheer shirt, which was a pretty cool style, if you're a skinny dude. and he's kind of hiding from Sarah, but then of course Sarah knows. She's wise. She's streetwise.
Yeah, because she says something about, if you really cared or whatever, and he goes, "Sir, I do care." And the sun comes out for the one and only time in the whole movie, so that it can cast a dramatic shadow of him across the room.
Yeah.
But that's fine. I'll allow it. It's used very well.
This scene is really good between them. Mm-hmm. And is this where he gives her the ring on the chain? Or no, that's later in the movie.
No, I think you might be right. I think this might be where he gives her the chain.
But basically, he has a moment with Sarah, and this, of course, is not part of his revenge mission. But he does care about Sarah, and so that's pretty important.
Yeah. Meanwhile, over at Trash, Skank he's doing a hilarious recap of the previous night's ordeal, and Top Dollar can hardly keep from laughing through this whole thing
because the acting is so over the top, ridiculous, and Skank is so sad.
T-Bird to you, buddy.
Skank is so sad, and he is sympathetic in this scene.
Yeah, he does the final fire it up.
All by himself, and single tear.
I know. Lisa goes, "He's the only one left." Like she really felt so bad for poor Skank.
I felt bad for Skank too in this moment because he's just a lovable scamp of a murderer.
Just that old trope, the lovable murder rapist, arsonist. Yeah. Barrett, it's true though. He is sort of lovable.
I mean, you can chalk it up to the quality of the acting.
Yeah. And so basically R.I.P. Top Dollar and Grange, they have the plan that they'll get all their troops together and they'll use Skank as the bait.
Yeah. And yeah, they're going to use it, and that comes up later.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like a little worm on a big damn hook.
Yeah. You feel like a little worm on a big fucking hook. Your mama must be real proud of you, boy.
It's really good. And so, I mean, we have a scene there with Albrecht and Sarah talking about Eric at the hot dog stand.
Yeah, that's where all the action happens.
Your fairy godfather.
Eric,
it's not untrue.
He plays the little more rooftop guitar, which ends in a triumphant Pete Townsend guitar smash.
It's kind of a better riff too. This is a better one.
Isn't it a continuation of the same riff, just like an elaboration?
Maybe
on it?
It's kind of a more of a crescendo.
Yeah.
And he smashes the guitar
because shit's about to get real.
He's like, "Don't need this anymore."
Yeah, because this is the last ride. This is the Unforgiven. This is the last ride. He's going. I don't know how he knows. I guess the crow told him. Everyone's going to be at Trash, and he's going to show up and have the final showdown.
And My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult is also playing at Trash.
Oh, I love this band.
Yeah, we saw them that one time.
I've seen him more than once.
I think I've seen him twice, but the one I remember was in Seattle, I think.
Oh, yeah. Man. Okay, I don't know how... I've seen this band multiple times, and it all comes from this movie. This was the reason why I liked them and why I went to go see them.
Yeah, always really, really good.
Yeah, and Top Dollar gives his Braveheart troop rallying speech about the origins of Devil's Night and everything. I think he's playing a little loose with the mythology of Devil's Night, but that's fine. He can take credit for it.
What is with Micah's little red bonnet hood thing? It's weird.
I think it's
kind of like a pilot's cap.
It is like a pilot's cap, but it reminds me of like the sort of like when you see people driving in convertibles like in the 1930s.
Oh yeah, like a driving cap.
Yeah, they wear a cap like that and a silk scarf, Mm-hmm. And I think that's what it's kind of evoking, like a film noir, femme fatale thing, I think.
Yeah, and I like that it's like a really bright pop of color. It's like a satin hat, because everything in this is so grim and dark, and everything. There's no color anywhere, so that's kind of sets her aside. It makes her pop on the screen.
Red is one of the few colors that appear in the movie.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I liked about what Top Dollar was saying was basically that, next there's going to be Devil's Night greeting cards. Mm-hmm. But he's right. Once something that was cool becomes the institution, it's then lame as fuck.
Yeah.
Like maybe a certain social media site was cool when it was just like a few people, but then when your Aunt Karen got on it, it's fucking lame.
He doesn't mean specifically my Aunt Karen.
Oh yeah,
but,
no, not your Aunt Karen, but the diver's Aunt Karen.
Yeah, metaphorically, all Aunt Karens.
Once they're on it, it's lame.
Yeah,
and so I mean, he's right. Devil's Night lost its edge.
But okay, let's talk about what the real, as I understand it. The real purpose of Devil's Night was people setting fires to nuisance buildings in their neighborhoods. So, like, say you had an abandoned building in your neighborhood that was being used as, like, a crack house or whatever, people on Devil's Night would go and set them on fire. And as far as I know, that's where the tradition of Devil's Night in Detroit comes from.
It was a real deal in Detroit?
Oh, yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad it hasn't caught on here because, well, first of all, there's a lot of people living in those abandoned buildings and they would probably die, but also we don't want the city catching on fire.
But just like in Detroit, it's hella wet here.
It is hella wet here.
So hopefully it doesn't spread all over the place.
And this is where Skank delivers his line about being a worm on a big hook.
Yeah.
And of course, the Crow flies in first.
Yeah.
And then Eric Draven jumps right in, and there's a long table filled with criminals and top dollar, and he faces them all down, just brazen as fuck.
You know, this is a small thing, but I'll call it out. That move of jump from a stand, jumping into a cross-legged, like a half lotus position on the table to talk to everyone, that's not an easy thing to do.
No, it was very athletic. And you know what I think this scene, or maybe even just Brandon Lee's acting in general, inspired? I think he inspired the Ledger Joker.
Oh, you're not the only person to say that.
The physicality it's uncanny how similar it is.
There's a lot of similarities in the makeup too.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's talk about the makeup for a second. So they weren't happy with how the makeup looked when it would be applied by the makeup artist. And so the technique they ended up settling on was Brandon Lee would apply the makeup himself before he went to bed. So that he would show up the next day with it washed out and smeared and everything in a natural way.
So I've done a lot of Crow makeup on myself over the years,
Yeah.
and a lot of other makeup for like black metal stuff or vampire stuff or whatever. And for sure, if you just put it on clean, it doesn't look cool.
It looks too clean.
Yeah, and so it has to be smudged. So like if you have a smudge, like a sponge, like a makeup sponge, you can smudge it yourself and make it. I'm motioning at my face. You can smudge it yourself so that it kind of blurs, but then you take the eyeliner pencil or whatever and you kind of reinforce the center of the smudge to give it a little more definition. I'm pretty sure they were doing stuff like that, but it looks really good all the time. It looks worn, but still legible, which is exactly what you want.
Perfect. And the other thing, just to kind of cut to the chase, he kind of addresses them and sort of gives the people that aren't involved in the revenge the opportunity to leave. And if they don't, their lives are forfeit. And everyone decides to stay and fight, as you would, because it's just one guy. And he has just like a great Hong Kong style action scene here where he goes through and gun foos everyone.
He's got like super powered parkour plus gun foo, and he's just fucking people up.
And so in this day and age where we've had like The Matrix and 3 John Wick movies and all of this stuff, and we're very familiar with the tropes of Hong Kong cinema in America now. Not in 1994. This shit is fire.
Yeah, when this first came out, everyone was like going nuts over how fucking dope it was.
Yeah, I looked because it's very reminiscent of like John Woo stuff.
Yeah.
And I looked, and his movies had already, like The Killer and Hard Boiled and stuff had already been out.
Yeah.
but they didn't have wide release in America. So this is a real niche thing, and a lot of people, this would be their first time seeing this kind of action.
Yeah, no doubt the stunt people and whatnot had seen those or were aware of them. Like, and cinemaphiles might have been aware. But as far as the wider American audience, this was really different, and it was really cool. I mean, there are some interesting movies like Chuck Norris movies and stuff where he engages some guns plus martial arts and stuff, but it's not like this.
No, there's something about Chuck Norris movies. It's when you watch those, I guess it's like the cleanness of his martial art. He does these really beautiful sweeping roundhouse kicks and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not kinetic and it's not visceral like this is. It's very much like, look how high that guy can kick, and in jeans, that's pretty impressive.
It's all like really crisp. There's no grittiness that makes you think it's a real fight.
Yeah, totally. And he takes care of all these guys. Micah and Top Dollar and Grange, of course, they slip out, but it ends up just Eric and Skank, and he tells Skank it's not a good day to be a bad guy. And Skank he's like, there's no Skank.
Skank's dead.
Skank's dead. That's Skank right there.
I love that part. Skank's dead.
Yeah. And Skank gets chucked out the window. We get our second falling out of a window. I guess, because probably Skank was the one to throw him
Eric out the
because
window.
Everyone has to die kind of for their crime.
So my question becomes at this point, now that Skank is dead, they were the ones who murdered him and Shelley. All the people that murdered him are dead. Shouldn't he be resting in peace, or is Top Dollar also culpable because he ordered it, as far as the mythology goes? Because it seems like he could just be like, all right, I can go away now.
He could. I think according to the mythology and the rules as we understand them, the job is done, and it's time for him to rest. He just needs to make his way back to the cemetery, basically.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the police show up, and the police, who have not been really great at their job and definitely aren't doing much about crime in this city, are hell-bent on catching the vigilante.
An extremely fast response time now.
There was a massive shootout during a rock concert, so a lot of people would have called the cops. But you also kind of have to wonder if the cops aren't on Top Dollar's payroll also.
Yeah,
because they show up with helicopters and everything, and they go ham after Eric. And we get another, him running on rooftops and stuff.
Yeah.
But now he can get hurt. He's bleeding like a motherfucker because Albrecht pulls up and helps him escape, and he leaves blood all over the car.
Yeah, he covers the inside of Albrecht's car in blood, and then he gets out and he runs away, and it kind of cuts over to Micah and Top Dollar, and she explains the magic. The crow is the link.
Yeah. So allegedly, and I don't know if this is true or not, but Brandon Lee didn't like this stuff, that the only other Asian person in the movie is like the Asian mystic.
Yeah.
And he thought that was kind of a bad stereotype and did not like this.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to say she felt like a token character, but it definitely felt a little bit shoehorned. Like, how did she know, and all of that. And, it felt a little bit extra in there, but at the time watching the movie, I guess she was always weird and esoteric, and she probably read strange books. And I don't know.
I never bumped up against it as a kid, but I wasn't really aware of any of those negative stereotypes either.
Sure.
So, Eric's trying to make his way to the cemetery.
And he's totally fucked up.
Yeah. He has a little moment with some trick-or-treaters. It's cute.
And he smiles. You get a smile out of Eric. It's nice.
There's no parenting going on in this Detroit. This dystopian Detroit. Kids run wild in the middle of the night. And Sarah's sleeping in the cemetery. She knows Eric was gonna kind of give her the slip, and leave without saying goodbye, and she wants to get
And
a goodbye.
so she waits because basically his job is done. He's going back to time to go home to Shelley.
Yeah. And he settles down. They have their little goodbye, and he settles down in the
This
cemetery.
is where he gives her the ring on the necklace. Yeah.
You're right. You're definitely right. And as Sarah's leaving, she gets abducted by Grange, and she gets used as bait to draw Eric out so they can kill the crow and take his power.
Yeah, so this is Eric. Eric had his false victory. So he had like it seemed like he won, but he didn't. And then something bad happened. This is like when Obi-Wan Kenobi gets killed. This is the same turn. And so you have to go back and be a hero.
Are we doing so if this is the hero's journey, and there's literally a place called the Pit. It tracks. So Eric goes to the church, and Grange is up in the balcony or whatever, and he shoots the crow.
Yeah, he's got a sniper rifle. It's maybe it's just an assault rifle with a scope, but he shoots the crow, but he does not kill it.
He doesn't kill it, and either because the crow is injured or because Eric is off mission or both, Eric's very woundable at this point.
And I like how Top Dollar, he just looks fucking in charge, and he's got a sword on his back.
Yeah.
He looks like the fucking Highlander.
He does, with the long hair, and he's wearing like a waistcoat, and leather gloves, and has a katana sword. So yeah, totally, he could be a Highlander for sure. But luckily, Albrecht shows up with the flare gun, shoots a flare at Grange, and evens the odds out a little bit.
But we missed one of the coolest lines. When Grange shoots the bird, Top Dollar says, "Caw, caw, bang, fuck, I'm dead." It's so good. The delivery's perfect.
I've quoted that many times. Yeah, for sure. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, and Top Dollar shoots Eric, and it works.
Yeah, and Eric, he kind of stands tall for a second, and he goes, "Oh fuck!" He falls over.
And this is Eric's moment where he's like, "Oh well, shit. I guess I'm gonna lose."
Yeah.
And he's like at rock bottom, and then the cavalry shows up. Albrecht shows up, and he shoots him with a flare.
Yeah.
And he's got a gun and a flare gun, and the bird is still alive, and Eric is still moving, so it's not too late.
Yeah. And so they're gonna make their way up the whatever, the belfry.
The steeple.
What do you call it? Yeah, the steeple. They're gonna go up the staircase that goes around the steeple, and they're pursuing Top Dollar and Micah, who have Sarah like tied up there. And Micah's always trying to catch the crow,
and she does.
She does, and poetic justice. She liked to pluck out eyes. She gets her eyes stabbed out by the crow.
Yeah, the crow just fucking goes berserk on her ass and gets her in the eyes.
And that's a puppet. That crow is a puppet crow.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't want a real crow
a
going
real
at
crow
your
pecking
face.
your eyes out.
It's like, trust us. This is a trained raven actor. He will not actually peck your eyes.
Yeah. A puppet is safer.
Yeah.
And as they're making their way up, Albert gets shot. And he has to hang back, and so Eric goes up there and has the big sword fight on the rooftop.
At some point, Grange gets shot, and I wondered at this point, like when Grange got shot, why wasn't he wearing a Kevlar vest? Because he's the smart guy. He has tactical gear.
Yeah,
it just seemed like that should have been a thing. But yeah,
good point.
We cut to
who shot. Did
Albrecht
shot him? Yeah. But then Albert got shot by Micah or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
It's a little muddy.
Everyone falls by the wayside, so it's only Top Dollar and Eric Draven on the rooftop in the rain. Top Dollar has his sword. Eric grabs a weather vane.
Yeah, which gets struck by lightning. Very dramatic.
It's really cool. This could have been a scene out of a Highlander movie. Dudes with long hair fighting on a rooftop, swords and stuff.
And Top Dollar, Eric just basically says, "Let the girl go and you can just have me." And he's like, "Okay," and just throws her. And so she slides down the tin roof, and then this being the dystopian Detroit, she falls through the roof, and she's just hanging there through this whole fight precariously.
Yeah, she's kind of hanging there, and I just thought it was pretty villainous to just kind of throw her off. It's like, whatever, dude.
Yeah, but he cares not.
He's a great villain.
And, he more or less has the upper hand on a depowered Eric.
Oh, yeah, because he's not injured at all. He has the sword, not a weather vane.
Yeah.
And, he's pissed off, probably high on coke.
As I understand it, coke was rampant on the set of this movie. I think a lot of people were high on coke.
Yeah.
And so the fight is going his way, and he has Eric, basically, he runs him through with the sword.
Yeah, he just impales him.
And Eric is bleeding out, and he takes his time, the moment to villain-splain to him how actually, nothing happens in the city that he doesn't call for. So he had that building swept, and he's responsible for his girlfriend getting killed. And I've seen this movie a million times, and this is literally the first time that I understood that that's why his powers came back right then.
Yeah, because he revealed that he was part of the murder plot, and the whole time he got his powers back. He grabs Top Dollar by the face and does like a psychic attack. He like inflicts him with all the misery that Shelley went through and all of that all at once, instantaneously into Top Dollar's brain.
Yeah, because he became an authorized kill by the rules of the game.
Essentially.
Yeah. And so he gives him the psychic whammy. He falls off the roof. Insult to injury, is impaled on a gnarly gargoyle.
Yeah, the ears who are sticking up are spiky.
Yeah.
And he just gets impaled on a gargoyle. It is a really cool scene. Just like a freeze frame there.
Yeah.
This dude, Top Dollar's like impaled, and the water is coming out of the gargoyle's mouth because it's a storm drain spout. Yeah. And the blood is mingling with it. It's like so cool.
And the horn of the gargoyle is coming out of his mouth, and the wing is coming out through his chest. It's just so gnarly.
Yeah, it's just really cool.
Again, love that. Chef's kiss again.
That movie design, that is just so good.
Yeah.
And so then Eric rescues Sarah, and they find that Albrecht is still alive, even though he got shot.
Yeah.
So we get resolution with those characters too.
Yeah.
And then Eric disappears again and heads back to his gravesite.
Yeah, he leaves Sarah with Albrecht, says wait for the paramedics to come. He goes to the gravesite. We get a little quickie with Torres, who's always mad at Albrecht, and he's like you're here, like you're always where everything's happening.
Yeah.
And then Eric gets to the grave, and Shelley's spirit comes to him.
And we get the song "It Can't Rain All the Time" is playing.
Yeah, it's very sweet. And he gets his eternal rest. We get another what's the word? Narration from Sarah.
Yeah, we get another voiceover.
Voiceover. That's what I was looking for. Buildings burn, people die, but true love is forever.
But real love is forever, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But real love is forever. Yeah.
And the crow brings Sarah the ring.
Yeah, she brings the ring, and then the outro song, It Can't Rain All the Time, performed by Jane Siberry.
Yeah.
Who she didn't write it, but is a great song. It's very sad and melancholy, and it kind of takes us through the outro. And I was just sitting there after watching this again, probably for the 150th time. I don't even know, because we used to just put this movie on while we were hanging out.
For sure.
And those don't really count as real viewings, but I watched this movie a lot. I would say that it's not unrealistic to say that I've watched it in earnest 25 times, and I've watched it in the background over 100 more.
I suspect that's accurate.
And so I was still sitting there kind of just feeling real feelings.
Yeah, because it comes up and it says for Brandon and Eliza, because Brandon Lee was engaged, and the wedding was set for kind of right after they were going to wrap on the film. Him and his fiancée Eliza were going to get married, and so you kind of get this sense of that loss again like it drives it home. It gives it an extra layer of realness.
So the movie, I haven't watched this movie probably in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad I did.
Do you want to know how it was supposed to end?
Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
Because it was supposed to be when he got to the cemetery, the skeleton cowboy would explain to him that because he had saved Sarah and had strayed from the revenge mission, he didn't get to go onto his great reward, and then he had to wander the earth as an avenger.
Forever.
Yeah, like apparently the skeleton cowboy is another person who had been cursed like this.
Oh.
And there was supposed to be 2 more movies.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that didn't happen because it was a great one and done.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't need to ever make more.
Well, I mean, they did make more.
They did, but they didn't need to.
They didn't need to.
So, what worked for you, and what were your personal highlights?
Oh man, personal highlights too. Okay.
Well, I mean, it's one section.
It's one section.
What's your favorite bits of this?
So, first off, production designer Alex McDowell, art director Simon Merton, and concept illustrator Darren Guilford.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about it. The models in this movie, the sets, all of this stuff are just so exquisite. It's this like hyper Detroit. It's not like the real city, because the real city's not this cramped together, and it's not this gothic, and it's not quite the way it is. It's still readable as Detroit, but it's this hyper dystopian version of Detroit, which is already a pretty dystopian place. So just the look of the movie is just superb. Number 2, the soundtrack and the score by Graham Revell. You called out the Can't Rain All the Time, which is one of his compositions. And I think, I had a really hard time kind of tracking down who like kind of picked the songs and where they went and everything, because I feel like Graham Revell has a hand in that, and there's certain parts of his score that borrows motifs from songs, like the Machines of Love and Grace song gets kind of incorporated into the score, and the way he melded his score with the needle drops, it's just excellent. It's extremely listenable. And then finally, Brandon Lee, the performance, the physicality and the emotion that he brought to it, the amount of personal investment that he put into it, developing his version of the character. This movie wouldn't be what it is without him, and it just makes his loss all the more tragic.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said.
What about you? What worked for you?
So, I mean, it's hard to say everything worked for me, but I mean, this movie had really excellent storytelling. So I think the screenwriting was top notch. They took kind of a rambling, moody comic book series and made it into a really tight story, edited it super well. It hits all the beats that you need to have a really good build up, climax, and resolution for all the characters. The hero is so relatable, and he's a type of hero that you want to root for because he's a righteous avenger, and you really feel the love that he's motivated by, the love lost. And the villains, you want to root against them, but they're interesting enough to make you think they're cool and want to see what happens to them. They're not completely paper thin. And so I think that kind of storytelling and the way they developed this comic book for a movie was extremely, extremely good. I don't always like the way they take written material and develop it for the screen, but I think this was an improvement. The movie is better than the comic. And I think that you already touched on it, but the style of the movie, the look, this captured the 90s, but amplified all the gritty, goth, dark overtones that were popular at the time, and really kind of made it sort of like a neon black. It was
I like that neon black, yeah.
And it was just so good, the way that they made this just so stylistic. And so I could go on about the little things that I liked, like the camera work and the costuming and the casting.
Yeah, let's shout out, because I didn't mention her, Ariane Phillips, the costume designer, because also...
Oh, yeah. The costuming is so good. I love the dialogue. It's so quotable. I mean, it's part of my everyday speech. So, yeah, I mean, this is an urban fantasy movie that's actually a romance, and it's couched in the guise of a retrospective tragedy, and it's excellent.
Okay.
So that all worked for me. What didn't work for you?
You know, I don't think we even had this word yet, but the fridging trope.
The fridging trope.
Yes, the whole trope of the woman who has to suffer so that the man can have feelings. Mm-hmm. You know, like, although I love this movie, that's a tough one, and our patience with it has got thinner and thinner as time has gone on. You know, an unfavorable read of this movie is it's just sort of the goth version of Death Wish, you know, where it's like the wife gets killed and the man goes on the revenge spree. It's a really tired and can be really gross, exploitive trope.
But do you think that it was? Do you think that the vengeance storyline, which is one of like the classic storylines, is invalid to have a partner lost? Is that not a valid motivation, especially when the person is developed as such a such a true love moment? I mean, there's a lot of...
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, you know, and this is a movie that I'm a fan of, so I'm not just like throwing it in the trash, but if I have to pick a thing, this is the thing. Sure. And if it was a new thing and not something that I had imprinted on at an impressionable age, I might not give it a shot, you know, because it's like, I just kind of see that's like, you know, revenge fantasy, over it, you know, so, you know, if there's something that didn't work for me, that's the thing. Okay. What about for you?
I think the tropey cop stuff was just not... It wasn't super useful to me. I didn't think that Detective Torres was a value add. I also thought... I thought that you just literally could have had Albrecht just be a cop who is limited by his rank and lack of being on the homicide squad for why he couldn't access stuff. And you could have just had him be doing that. I mean, you could have taken the same character of Albrecht and just made him a private detective and had the exact same arc.
Yeah.
I don't think that having the police drama, having Albrecht have a minor nemesis, I don't actually think that was needed in order to make the character valid. I think that it was just kind of those were throwaway moments in the movie.
I think that's pretty fair. And the Torres is not a character from the comic. That's something that was added for the movie. And I think that gets to your point of why he could just get removed.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't change anything.
For sure. All right. So what is your final thoughts and your rating?
You know, this is one of those movies, you know, I think I said the same thing about Repo Man, where it's like I watched it one night and then watched it again the next morning when I took my notes. And there was none of the like, oh, I have to watch that movie again when I already just saw it. It was like, I get to watch this movie again. Like, the second time was even like almost more fun because I was a little primed and reminded of how much I liked it. So it's just, you know, I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie, and it was a really fun movie to rewatch.
Yeah, I agree.
What about you?
Well, you didn't give it a rating.
Oh, we do a rating? Okay, I thought you asked me something else. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I said your final thoughts and your rating.
So my rating is 4 stars.
Okay.
Enthusiastic 4 stars.
That's a valid rating. I think so. As far as my final thoughts, I thought that I haven't watched this movie in 10 years, and I didn't even own the comic anymore. At some point, I got rid of it. And
I think you gave it to me.
I gave it to you, and I bought it again, and I read it again. The movie's better than the comic, and I think that this movie, maybe in the grand scheme of cinematic history, it maybe is not as grand as it is in my own mind, because it was cool when I was young and I was looking for things that I was interested in and I thought were cool. But I could really only find a couple of small flaws with it. It's a very enjoyable movie to watch.
Yeah.
I would watch this again tonight. It's not and so I give it 5 stars.
Oh, that elusive 5. It's not your first 5.
It is not my first 5. I've given one other 5 before, and that was to The Mandalorian TV show. This is my first 5-star movie. So I think this is the best movie we've watched for me.
Okay.
Of all of these movies, if I was going to, choose one that I liked the best, and this is episode 31, this is my favorite one.
Nice.
And I like all of these movies.
So we've talked about this a little bit. Let's dig into this for a second. This is one of those movies that ticks all 3 boxes, right?
Yeah.
It is cult classic, subculture, geek media,
which is our mission statement.
And we've been endeavoring to focus on things that hit all 3 boxes.
Yeah, for sure.
What do we call the 3 boxes?
Yeah, I don't know. We've been thinking about this. I mean, I think of words like a trifecta.
Ooh, trifecta.
Yeah, this is a trifecta movie. I haven't thought of any other cooler term than that. This is a Triforce movie.
Because I thought the meta triangle, but
man.
meta trifecta.
Oh, that has a better ring to it.
It does.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think this definitely, The Crow is a meta trifecta.
Yes.
And our next movie is also a meta trifecta.
And that is
Dune.
That is Dune. Okay. Yeah.
We are coming back around. We are coming home, divers. We are
back
coming
to
home. We're going back to the desert. We're gonna find some worm sign.
Oh man, I can't wait for that.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a break. Oh wait, I had one more thing. I got to tell you what the IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes are. That's part of my job.
Yeah.
So IMDb gives it a 7.6 out of 10, which agrees with you, and Rotten Tomato gives it 83%, which agrees with you. And I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I think your rating is probably closer to most people, but for me, I can't not give it a 5.
I appreciate that. You got to go with your heart.
Yeah, if I legitimately love this movie, so I can't not give it a 5. So.
And I do too. And it was a joy to rewatch it. I liked it so much, like I said, that I went ahead and watched Crow City of Angels.
I did not do that.
You should watch Crow City of Angels. It's the whole same production design crew. And there's a lot to like about that movie. There was a lot of studio interference. The studio always wants this to have sequels, right?
Sure.
And so I think the ending got futzed with a little bit. And so I don't think we really saw the true Tim Pope vision of City of Angels.
Is it on Paramount Plus also?
Yes, it is also on Paramount Plus.
Might as well. Got it for Picard.
Yeah.
Keep it for The Crow.
Watch Crow City of Angels, and then those other 2, like the one of Edward Furlong. I've never seen them, and I don't think I ever will.
Yeah, maybe it's worth doing just for the hell of it. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll come back and finish it up.
All right, welcome back, divers. It's time for the final segment, the one where I ask Dave, what are you into right now?
Well, you know me. I'm always into Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk about one of the newest releases that they are putting out. They're putting out a ton of stuff right now. There's a new Critical Role adventure campaign book coming out. Not a setting, but an actual adventure. They've teased that they're going to make a couple of they're going to revive a couple of old settings next year. And pretty sure one of them is Spelljammer, which is going to be dope.
That's like the space stuff, right?
Space stuff, yeah. And then there's a new book coming out later this month called Fizzbang's Treasury of Dragons, I think.
Oh, actually, yeah, I looked at that.
Dragon lore. I'm definitely getting that. But this one came out a little bit ago, I think, at the end of last month. And I got the cool variant cover that has that has the really dope artwork on it called The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. And this one it's a campaign book, so it's meant to be run as like an adventure characters. But all of these big, fat, like 300-page campaign books, they all have like some new character options in them. Mm-hmm. And this one is focused on the Fae and the Feywild, which I'm a huge fan of the Feywild. I don't know, just I've always
That's
loved...
wild with a Y.
Yeah. I've always just loved I've just always loved this stuff because it's tied to mythology in real world. I always like stuff that has allusions to old stories and stuff. Anyway, so The Wild Beyond the Witchlights, it introduces a couple of new backgrounds that are Fae related. No big deal unless that's your thing. But there's a couple of new races. There's one called Fairy, which is pretty cool because most of the Fae races are too powerful to play as a character. Like pixies and brownies and stuff, they all have these magical abilities that make them too strong. So the Fairy is actually balanced for play for player characters. So they get a flight speed and they're small, they're not tiny. So they're like the size of a halfling or something. They're pretty little.
Interesting.
And they do get some spell-like abilities, and they get more of them as they go up in level. They get a few other cool ones. So I really liked the Fairy. I don't know if I would play it, but the thing I like about it is that it's kind of a blank slate character, like race. You could really make it into any themed style of Fairy. It's a nice skeleton for the story you want to play, and I like that. And then the other one, it's another one of these anthropomorphic races, which they put out a lot of them over different books and stuff, like the Leonin and the Kitsune and all this different. I don't know if Kitsune is one, but there's definitely a lot of different ones. This one is called the Harengon. They're rabbit people or hare people.
Oh, okay.
And they're actually pretty cool mechanically. Like they're super speedy and they can jump far and they get an initiative bonus and all this stuff. I just think they're neat. And I'm a big fan of like Watership Down and stuff. So I don't know. I liked it. I just thought it was cool. There's a whole bunch of new magic items in there, which, I'm a dungeon master most of the time. So that's really cool to me. I love giving out toys to the players that they think are rad. There's a ton of Fae creatures from previous editions that have been brought back. Things like Quicklings, which are a huge favorite of mine, like the super speedy little sprites.
Okay.
Red Caps, Darklings, Giant Dragonfly, Cords, and many, many more. So I just think that's really neat. To bring all that stuff back. It's a kind of a shot of nostalgia for me because all this stuff is from previous editions. Well, not all of it, but most of it. And then one thing that I like about this adventure is that this is not the same as doing, like the Temple of Elemental Evil or something like that, which is mostly kind of a dungeon crawl, etc. This is set in the Feywild, and there's a Fae carnival, and there's a lot of things that happen. It's largely based around role play and encounters and things that are combat optional.
Yeah.
And so I think that this kind of represents a newer style, kind of a new school play style, which is sort of inspired by a lot of the live play shows on TV or on the internet and stuff, where character arcs and stories and drama and kind of the theater aspect of D&D is really emphasized. And The Wild Beyond the Witchlight really leans into that and makes this kind of an interesting departure from previous adventure modules. So I like it.
That's interesting because I think those shows, like, you know, like you always mention Critical Role, but also even Harmon Quest. And stuff like that. It's an entry point where people that didn't really kind of understand role-playing games, what they were, it gets them interested in it.
Yeah.
And so that makes sense that they would kind of appeal to that market.
And if people are interested in live play, obviously I've mentioned Critical Role. I'm a bit of a fan. But you can also check out Harmon Quest, like he mentioned. There's a really good one called High Rollers, and another really good one called The Chain of Acheron that I highly recommend. Anything. You know, there's just some really high quality live play shows being made nowadays. That Critical Role is not the only game in town, but they've really kind of kicked open the doors for this.
Yeah.
And so you can find something that is sort of your taste if that's what you want to do. And so that's what I've been up to, is just kind of nerding out. So what have you been up to, or what are you into right now?
What am I into? It's all right. So it occurred to me as I was kind of plotting out our next several episodes. We're coming up on the end of the year. And so I was thinking, year-end episode, I'm going to have my of the years.
Oh, yeah.
And I just didn't feel like I had listened to enough albums to... I knew what my album of the year was going to be, and I still do.
Oh.
It hasn't been displaced. But I thought I need to sample some more albums that came out this year and see if there's any challengers to the one I already had picked.
Okay.
And I made a couple discoveries that really resonated with me. And the first of those is Amyl and the Sniffers. Their new album, Comfort to Me, came out in September. They're an Australian punk band with a female vocalist. And it's good, old school, like kind of snotty punk rock, like closer to like that true 77 style. But like if the X-Ray Specs had grown up in Australia on that AC/DC diet that they give kids there. And so it's a little crunchier than a true 77 punk band.
Sure.
And I just really love her, Amy Taylor, as a vocalist. Her lyrics are they're just really like raw and open emotionally in a way that you don't always think of in punk rock, which fronts a little bit and really only has one acceptable emotion, which is anger.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think it's like there's more depth to their songs. And just like it's really catchy, you know, short little punk songs, and they get stuck in your head. Like, what was the one? Security, the song Security. You know, I listened to it today and it'll be in my head, you know, for the rest of the week.
Nice.
And so it just sticks with me. And then, you know, another young, you know, Zoomer punk band, you know, who knew that was even still a thing, is Chubby and the Gang. They're from West London. Their album, The Mutts Nuts, came out August. And this is like, they seem like the kind of lads that have a real serious opinion about which football team you support. Like it's that kind of punk rock, real bother rock, stomper music. I shouldn't say that exactly because they're a bunch of long-haired guys. They're not baldies, but
okay.
But it's that, you know, that kind of street punk oi with the American hardcore influence.
Gotcha.
And I've been just playing those two albums quite a bit. So that's what I've been into lately.
Oh, glad to hear it. I'm definitely gonna. I'm probably gonna check out that first one. Maybe the second one. But if you post them on our socials, I'll definitely click the links. I'm good for some link clicking.
All right. So you want to give the call to action?
Yeah. Go ahead and subscribe to us on your favorite podcatcher. Rate us generously. A 5-star review costs you nothing, but means everything to us.
We are disillusioned with Facebook, and we both like Instagram. But we're also on Pinterest, even though I haven't updated it for quite a while.
Well, I guess this is really goodbye.
Don't say goodbye. Say good journey.